All right, it's 7:01 p.m. We're going to begin this regular meeting of the Rutherford Board of Education, February 24th, 2025. Going to ask everyone to please stand, face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll ask Mr. Whitford to please take roll.
Mrs. Bogosian?
Present.
Mrs. Cole?
Here.
Mr. Conti?
Present.
Mr. Healy?
Here.
Mrs. Jones?
Present.
Mr. Maison? Dr. Racine?
Here.
Mr. Sprayberry? Dr. Eladi?
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Rutherford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted on the bulletin board outside the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald, South Bergenite, and the Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of the agenda are available in the meeting room, and the agenda is posted electronically on Friday before the meeting date on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. Subsequent to the meeting, a video of the meeting will be uploaded to the district's website, www.rutherfordschools.org. The video link can be found by opening the Board of Education link and clicking on Public Meetings and then Videos. So board members, in your packets, there were regular meeting and executive session meeting minutes from January 27th. Any comments, questions about those? Seeing none, I'll ask Mr. Whitford to please enter those. And now I will turn it over for the report of the student representative.
Good evening. To begin tonight, the senior fashion show went very well. The senior class had a lot of fun, and there were over 400 prizes raffled off. The 8th grade students from Union School recently visited the high school, where they toured the building and got a chance to see some of the high school classes. Student council members led the tours and talked to the students about some things they can expect next year. The Consumer Bowl team won the county competition, and we will be going on to compete against other county winners in the regional competition in April. Winter sports are still going strong and will be concluding soon. Recently, the boys basketball team won the division and conference championship. Additionally, 4 RHS track athletes broke the school record at the NJIC championship meet. 3 RHS students were selected to perform with the New Jersey Region 1 Honors Choir at Morris Knowles High School earlier in the month, which is a great accomplishment. This past week, some of the physics classes tested their balloon-powered cars that they made to see which students traveled the fastest and the furthest. This was related to Newton's laws and helped demonstrate force and motion. Some students in Mrs. Leonard's honors accounting class got to visit an accounting firm last week to see some of the tasks that accountants perform and look at different real tax paperwork. The experience provided more insight into what the accounting profession can look like in the real world, and some more students will be visiting next month. This month, the Future Healers Club has been selling lollipops to raise money, which will be donated to the American Heart Association. Last year, $300 was raised and donated, so the goal is to raise more this year. Next week, members of the Future Teachers of America Club will be visiting Lincoln, Washington, and the Kindergarten Center for a Read Across Rutherford Day, where they will be reading to the younger students and leading various activities. The RHS Spring Musical, Mary Poppins, is coming up on the 14th and 15th of March. The cast, crew, and band have been working really hard to get the show ready and can't wait to perform. The theater department is also hosting a Mary Poppins Tea Party this Saturday, March 1st, with appearances from members of the cast. From the other schools, Lincoln School shared that they collected food for the Rutherford Food Pantry recently. Students got to place their donations on the table corresponding to the team that they predicted would win the Super Bowl, and in total, Lincoln School collected over 300 items. Washington School is looking forward to one of the students' favorite events, Scooterville. They have been practicing navigating the course and following directions along the way, and they will be putting their skills to the test this week. A new addition to the course this year is Nurse McShane's hand washing station, which teaches kids how to properly wash their hands and encourages healthy habits. Pierpont School has their virtual author visit with the author of their One School, One Book novel this week. Also, 6th grade students are getting ready to choose their 7th grade classes. Union School shared that the school play, The Lion King Jr., was a great success thanks to the students and staff who put it together. Additionally, the Student Council has some fun activities planned, such as a trip to Lincoln School to teach a lesson about tessellations and a trip to Washington School for Read Across America Week. That's it for tonight. Thank you.
Nice job, Sarah. Now you're going down to the lower grades.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really love that you've added this year is looking at other schools and what's happening in the schools to give us really a well-rounded view. So thank you for that. Questions or comments from board members?
Nice job.
I'd like to comment that, I think we had about, in the communication I sent out to you, board members, I think there's about 13 or 14, maybe more, students in middle school and high school who either got selected to the highest level of choirs in the county and state, won regional, county, and moving on to state in a couple of different writing competitions and video competitions and art competitions in both the Elks and the PTA. And, it's just, those numbers have grown. We've always had winners, but they've grown. You mentioned the athletic program. I think probably both fall and winter, we maybe didn't have that one team that won everything, but I don't remember too many years we've had so many consistent, successful teams and individuals. The play, Union School was fantastic. If the Instagrams that they're putting out for the high school are any indication what the play is going to be like, it's going to be fabulous. I never thought, number one, that I'd be emailing two teachers, congratulating them on their Instagrams. Number one, that I'm on Instagram, and number two, that I'm congratulating them for it. But it really has been a very remarkable year in a lot of ways. And, we're in, I guess, metaphorically with baseball, we're probably maybe in the 5th inning or 6th inning, so I don't want to, pack up the bats and say we've won already. But to date, this has been a really remarkable year. I don't know if, Sarah, if you want to say anything about this, but Ms. Cole, you had asked last time about the midterms, and I did some inquiry, and the teachers and the students, all seemed to think they were worthwhile. I mean, the students, a little bit arduous, I guess, but see the value in it, and the teachers also thought it was a really good, universally, the consensus has been pretty good. I don't know if you want to, hopefully you don't contradict me after all those nice things I said. But.
No, I agree. I think they were definitely preparing us for the future, like college and stuff. And it was a good way to just kind of remember everything we learned from the first half of the year, because it's definitely important to keep in mind and just not forget it after learning it.
And like everything we do, we try to learn from it. So Mr. Morano told me that the only, or maybe not the only, but one concern was makeups and how to get those all done in a timely fashion. And they're working on ways to make that a smoother process, going forward. So anyway, congratulations to the student body. Now you have this all-encompassing report. We have to congratulate everybody as student body. But a lot of times the younger schools do a lot of community service, things like that. Not as much as the older kids, obviously, and it often doesn't get noticed. So it's great that you've included that as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say that in our memo that we get from Mr. Hurley, that there were so many students to be congratulated, and we really appreciate those updates, because as a strategic board, we don't know those things unless we hear from you or we hear from Jack's memo. And no offense to Jack, we also like hearing it from the students as well, and very well-rounded as always. So thank you.
Thank you.
So feel free to stay if you'd like for any other portion of the meeting, and if you do have to leave early for homework or other commitments, we understand as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
You too.
Thanks, Sarah. Be well.
So next up, we have our academic committee report. We're very excited to hear all these wonderful updates, so I'll let Mr. Hurley tee it up.
Before I introduce our first speaker, in my report tonight, I was going to talk about this, but I think it's tied in now to what they're going to be talking about. I'm sure you remember the email I sent out, and then you hopefully saw the article that was in This is Rutherford about the accomplishments. But for the sake of public record and for people watching, And we're also, this will come out in our newsletter as well. We were one of 100 schools approximately. I think it was more like 107 or 108 schools across the country who, based on a study from Harvard and Stanford universities, showed that we've rebounded from the pandemic and we are, quote, fully recovered. There are 5 school districts in New Jersey that got that name attached to them and made the grade. They are Princeton, Montclair, Montgomery Township, and Livingston. And again, when you look at those areas and the way they're perceived, socioeconomically and educationally, that's a really nice company to be in. In addition to that, we were but a handful of schools that actually showed increase during the pandemic. Most schools lost or at best stayed flat, and we showed slight increase there. So coming out of the pandemic to go up approximately a quarter of a grade level in our math scores and half a grade level in our reading scores is a remarkable achievement. And the reason why I want to mention that ahead of what they're going to talk about, it's going to be a brief report, right? Brief report on things we've been doing. But, partly, I think credit, goes to obviously the administrators, supervisors, the teachers, the kids, for what we've done, and the community, and the board. We used, I think there's 2 things I want to comment on, the article commented on. First of all, we took a very proactive approach during the pandemic. I think we didn't lose that much because we kept schools open. We also kept them open for elementary kids. We kept them open for special ed kids, full time. Not many schools did that. The article mentions that we had 95 administrators and teachers get together on probably the biggest Zoom meeting I was ever on when we came out of that year of shutdown. And we divided those people into 6 or 7 committees, and they had about maybe 8 days to come up with recommendations. And then we had a steering committee that met 2 times a week, 3 times a week, because we had to have a full plan out to the state by the end of July. And they didn't tell us what the plan had to entail until July 1st. So you subtract the 4th of July and a couple of weekends, didn't give you a lot of time. And Ms. O'Donnell and Ms. Saxon and Mr. Salisi, Mr. Ryan, Mr. Morano, Dr. Valechko, those were the individuals that worked with me on that plan. And I think the plan gave us the groundwork, but we didn't lose ground. And then what we did, as a segue into what you're going to hear, is we used the pandemic and we used the concern of learning loss to motivate the faculty to take a deep dive into all of our academic programs. It was a good time to say, hey, we're doing okay, but how do we know how we're doing coming out of the pandemic, and can't we do better? So starting in, I guess it was 2022, we started putting committees together, and we had a whole bunch of committees that have now sunset that worked during 22 and 23 and into 24. We have a couple of others that are working now, and we have the aftermath of what those committees did going forward. So I did send a lot of information, some information, in the mid-year goal report, but I thought it'd be good to hear kind of a brief overview of what's currently happening with some of our academic programs. So I'm going to start off with Mr. Ryan, who has a very long title. He is the Supervisor of Research, Evaluation, and Testing, right? Is that right?
Planning, research.
Planning, research. It was a very long time. We're going to work on shortening that title up a little bit. And Mr. Ryan's going to kick us off. And we do have a little PowerPoint if you want to position yourself to see. There's just kind of talking points. And Mr. Ryan, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you for inviting us here tonight. We appreciate it. We appreciate to have the opportunity to come meet with the Board of Ed and present what we've been working on and meeting about. So as Mr. Hurley said, we proactively, to mitigate learning loss, the district created several academic committees to do a complete internal audit. And part of that audit, through this audit, we completed an academic overhaul based on our needs. And we've been meeting with you, and you've been hearing about this since 2022. But we wanted to give you kind of an update where we are and then where we're going. The ELA, this year we have fully implemented the 2023 New Jersey Student Learning Standards. During the last 2 years, school years, our teachers have been working with Reading Coach to enhance our student-targeted reading skills, increase vertical and horizontal articulation opportunities between the reading and ELA teachers district-wide. We're in the process of updating a new phonics program, which will be implemented during the 25-26 school year. For math, we've fully implemented the 2023 Math New Jersey Student Learning Standards. We are in the first year of a 2-year math resequencing. We fully implemented our new math program, Envision. Throughout this school year, we provided multiple professional development sessions with the Envision math coaches, which has been ongoing and very successful in helping our teachers deliver instruction based on new math program. In science, we have been working on claim evidence reasoning, CER writing. It's a formulaic writing, and this has been fully integrated into our K through 12 science curriculum. The science committee is also continuing to meet, and they're working on choosing a new district science program. A lot of what we attribute this is our committees, and some of the other work that we've been doing is data analysis. We've really been focusing on going through the test data. In every building, we've had a major focus on student data using Linkit, IXL, and NJSLA data. We've been able to drill down on individual needs of the students, which has helped us increase our academic growth through tiered interventions. We've also, speaking of interventions, working on our response to intervention RTI program. We're in the process of restructuring our RTI teams in each building, ensuring that our RTI program is both systematic and consistent throughout the district. We've also worked on our honors requirements. This year is the first year we've implemented these new standards for our honors program. We're in the first year, and we've basically scheduling has gone very smoothly. It went smoothly this year. It's going smoothly for next year. And as we talked about earlier, Mr. Hurley talked about our midterms and final. We've been implemented at RHS. Midterms in January went well. The supervisors and administrators are currently working on the end of the year schedule. Benchmark assessments are also being piloted and rolled out this year at Union School. So I'll now turn it over to Washington School Principal, Mrs. Saxon, who will discuss updates to the profile of a Rutherford graduate.
If I could, because I'll forget, a couple of the data that Mr. Ryan spoke about, you'll see that many of the school goals and district goals involve data. Linkit is something that we use primarily K to 8 and really more like grades 2 to 8. It's aligned with the state standards, but it also gives us a lot of data. We do 3 testing during the year, 3 times testing during the year. And what we're seeing, for example, is we're seeing some improvement in math scores where we were looking, and which is nice to see as we're putting this new program in. So the data really gives us both positive news and also gives us areas to look at critically to make some improvement. Okay, so we've done a lot in 2 or 3 years. And again, I want you to understand, these folks are speaking here tonight. All these committees are made up of teachers. And all these recommendations came from teachers. So the buy-in has been very high because of that. Okay, so now profile of the graduate.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for letting us hijack some of your board meeting time to highlight our accomplishments and explain the road that we continue to travel with these initiatives. The profile of a Rutherford graduate, I'm going to link the past and the present, because with this initiative, the past is the present because it's constantly evolving. So where we are, we've had a strong communication and awareness. Opening day for the staff, we introduced PORG to the faculty, just ensuring that we would have awareness from the start. Visual displays all over the building, the schools, the community, the district. We have banners and posters in every building which serve as daily reminders. And the most important thing is the language, a common language for the community and for the students as well. Even at the lower levels, they're starting to see the language in their classrooms and around the building, and we talk about it constantly, the communication, the critical thinking, the creativity. In fact, if you see a lot of the, I'm going off the script a little bit, but a lot of the Facebook, the schools that put together some activities and some blurbs highlighting, you'll notice that every single activity really is aligned with Profile of a Rutherford Graduate. So what we've said from the beginning is that these competencies have always been in our curriculum, but this initiative allows us to put the pieces together, the puzzle pieces together, and highlight what we've done, and if we could even tweak it a little bit more to be stronger. We have a website, a link on the Rutherford website. There's a link to Profile of the Graduate. Click on that. Every school, through our advisory board, they're the liaisons with the staff. Every school contributes to that website, highlighting, we hit every competency and the activities that you'll see that's going on in every school. And this gives insight to everyone, the community educators and the students as well. We are infusing curriculum. The advisory board met twice so far this year, and there's a third one on the way, a third meeting on the way. They took apart and dissected the entire curriculum from K through 12, took a piece by piece and aligned every competency that we've identified from the start to pieces in the curriculum. Let's see. So this initiative has gained some great momentum with our strong communication and identifying pieces of the curriculum. So where we're going now in the future is we want to identify and develop these, what we call these profile projects, or we could call them capstone projects, where students apply their skills in a meaningful way, but real world experiences. And again, I'm going to go off the script a little bit. I was listening to Miss Iorio Sarah, my former student, and she was talking about a project that high school, the Newton's cars, the balloons. And I'm looking around the room, and I've probably had most of your kids in my STEM class, and that's a project at the lower level that we started at the Pierpont of the elementary school, and it's interesting to see a project like that also in the high school, the same skill sets, but we're enhancing it as they go. So these are life skills. We're preparing them for education beyond, so you can look at it as Pierpont bridging over to the next levels, but also preparing them for life beyond their Rutherford education. So we'll be looking at these profile projects, and we want input from administrators, from supervisors, from all staff, but also from students as well at various levels. To demonstrate these competencies, we're exhibiting these skills so they can advance. And finally, we will join forces with the Atlas curriculum, putting the pieces of these curriculum into our new platform, which I believe Mr. Salisi will be talking about the Atlas. So joining forces with the profile competencies, the PORG standard, shall I say, aligning it with the Atlas platform. And that's Profile of Rutherford Graduate.
So as Mr. Ursulisi makes his way up to the microphone, the advisory board did a mammoth job. They took every piece of curriculum through K to 12 and aligned competencies to areas in the curriculum, which now is going to be merged into Atlas eventually. So, to show how the skills in profile are the skills that we are embedding and hoping to embed in our students, that connection that was made was an enormous task and a good effort. Mr. Salisi, Atlas.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this piece on Atlas. Atlas is a platform that will allow us to, I'm just going to move that away so we don't get that feedback sound, that will allow us to create living documents when it comes to curriculum. Oftentimes, a curriculum document is written, it ends up in a binder or it ends up in a Google Drive, and it sits there, and teachers don't have daily access to it. And they might reference it 2 or 3, 4 times a year just to say, well, what's next? What am I supposed to be teaching next? And the idea of a curriculum document is that it is supposed to be fluid. It's supposed to be aligned to the standards, but it's also supposed to be aligned to local sensibilities, our sensibilities. And it should change on a regular basis. And what Atlas will allow us to do is put the curriculum in front of every teacher every single day. So this platform puts the curriculum document in place, not in place, but in front of them as they get ready to do their daily lesson plans or their weekly lesson plans or their unit plans. So they are constantly referring to not only what am I teaching, why am I teaching it, what resources am I using, am I going to be using, what standards am I going to be hitting, and not only, this is something new that Atlas will allow us to do, we're not just teaching the standards, but how are we assessing the standards, and what data can we get back from when we assess those standards? Okay, that ties into directly back to the data slide we saw in the very beginning that Mr. Ryan shared when it comes to looking at where our strengths and our weaknesses are on the NJSLA. Those specific standards, we can now drill down into the daily or the weekly or the unit instruction and find out, well, we were maybe deficient on the NJSLA in Standard X. Well, let's see, how often was Standard X taught? How often was Standard X assessed? And what resources are we using to do it? So at this point, every curriculum document has been transferred from a Google Doc into the Atlas platform. It's all moved over. There is a committee of 32 teachers that have been working hard in various subcommittees, creating templates, coming up with common language, universal terms. All the supervisors have been trained, and we've had targeted PD days for key members in every single department. So world language, social studies, the STEM department, PE, FPPA, ELA, everyone has had at least a 2-hour session, but in most cases, it's been a full day session of key members in each department or grade level. Now, those have become our Atlas ambassadors, and moving forward, we have a half-day PD coming up on Monday, March 3rd. Those Atlas ambassadors are going to turnkey to their departments or to their grade levels. And we're basically going to roll this thing out district-wide on Monday. And then that will dovetail into a bigger PD day on June. June 10th, I believe, is the change date because of the primary. So we are excited. It's really been very exciting. And it has created a lot of interesting discussions as we've gone through. Simple things like, well, wait a minute. In 11th grade, we're using Hamlet here. Well, what if we moved it here? What if Hamlet became a 9th grade text? Because that ties more in with the idea of feeling isolated, and maybe that would work a little bit better with Lord of the Flies. There have been some great discussions about phonics, Reader's Workshop, and Writer's Workshop in the lower grades, and how those can be better embedded and better intertwined with one another. And that's all a direct reaction to having the curriculum in front of people every single day. And I just think it's going to get better. So thank you.
Before you introduce Ms. Coy,
Yep.
I want to mention that Ms. Coy co-chairs this with you.
Yep.
Mr. Ryan co-chairs Profile with Ms. Saxon. So a lot of people wearing multiple hats here.
Yes.
But I think both Mr. Ursulisi and Ms. Coy, and I think everybody there could agree that every one of those teachers who have been those ambassadors, right, are really excited about this. There's been, I think all the committees we've had, there's been a great deal of enthusiasm. This one seems to be even beyond in terms of how they're buying into it. And going through the CUSAC process right now that we're going through in anticipation of our April 2nd visit, until you see something else and you dig into it, I didn't realize, how, I'm very proud of everything we do. I say we're ahead of most places. Well, our curriculum model really wasn't, okay? And this is catching us up to where we should be, okay? And it's going to make all those wonderful things we're doing become even, I think, more, it'll become better, but also make it, I don't want to say easier, but make it more practical and more usable by the teachers when they use it.
I think the synergy between Profile and Atlas is great. I think the articulation that will happen between grades and between disciplines will be greater because a 4th grade teacher now has the 5th grade curriculum right in front of them. They don't have to go to a binder or go search on the website or set up time to have a meeting. Everything is there. And again, the resources are there. That's going to be the biggest component when we roll into that next year. I'm going to turn it over to Megan, but I just want to go backwards to the student representative. I was in Atlantic City the past week for the music educators, and I did see the New Jersey All-State Treble Choir, and we had 2 of our students performing, and it was outstanding. So just to dovetail on what you said about the great things that are happening in our schools and in our classrooms, it was really wonderful to see. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Coy.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. I think tonight, I'm sure actually all of your meetings are super energetic and super exciting, but I feel like tonight's meeting, I hope gives you a good feel of our school district from our staff, from our administrators, what the teachers are doing, what the children are learning, and I hope you feel that energy that we've had come through. I think our initiative to make Parent Academy even more robust than it's been in the past has been a great segue into educating our parents in our community about different topics that are new for their children within the school district, whether it be the new Envisions math program that we had workshop for to introduce it, or on phonics. How do we teach phonetic instruction? What does it look like? When to be concerned, what does dyslexia look like opposed to just a child who's struggling with phonics, and giving parents some real tangible tools to work and support their children have allowed the children to grow and been beneficial for all. I also, if you think back to the beginning of the school year with a message from Mr. Hurley at all of the back to school nights, and if you attended more than one, you maybe heard it a few times, but he talked about the anxious generation and really the impact of social media and technology and how it's impacting our children, the youngest children all the way through to our older students. So the Parent Academy was able to provide parent training and education for 2 separate age groups. We did a K-3 workshop twice, and we also did a 4-12 workshop twice, focusing on the benefits of free play, how to develop executive functioning, what overparenting looks like, allowing children to fail, and really explaining to parents, not how to parent, but what to do to encourage your child to grow as an individual, and made those connections back to why it's important to do at home to be able to translate that into the classroom. So it's really been exciting. The parent feedback has been overwhelming. I have had parents reach out to me afterwards saying, oh my gosh, my Girl Scout troop is doing a mom book club and we had a great time, so now we're gonna go talk about what we're going to do with the children this time. And I've had other parents say, okay, so if I call my PTA and we're going to talk about Let Grow, which is an initiative to help students grow independently, what do you think would be some resources, or where do you think are some places to go and get them moving and getting them acclimated into being themselves and going outside and playing, and why that's important to their education. So the Parent Academy this year, I really feel has provided not only some information and some resources to the parents, but it has also allotted them topics and just kind of provoke conversations that may not have been had before. So it's really exciting what we have done. We're looking to continue to maintain providing our parents with productive and informative workshops throughout the remainder of the year. Our next parent workshop is actually on this Friday. It's on executive functioning, and that was really parent driven. So as we were going through these, what are some things that have come up and what are some topics, and from feedback from some of the other administrators in SACS talking about where are some gaps that we need to really provide some takeaways and strategies. So that's this Friday. And one of the best things about Parent Academy this year, I feel, is that the resources are available online. So if you're unable to attend the workshop, you're able to go back and look at it and say, oh, this is a great topic. Or if you weren't able to hear about the anxious generation for your age group, or you have a child that's on that cusp and you want to see what the next conversation is, the parents have been able to have that experience and just really stay abreast of all the information. So I'm excited for the ones that we have coming up this week. We're looking into planning some other ones, and I'm thrilled where it continues to go.
I think it's been the most successful year. Yeah. We've had a lot of good programs in the past, but in terms of attendance, in terms of feedback, right?
Yeah.
I think it's been
we've hit an area where we're able to unite with parents. It's not us telling, it's not them telling us, we're an area where we're seeing the need for something. And what is that something? It's something that only can be identified through collaboration. So it's been really, I think throughout the district, just a really great conversation starter, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think the presenters, and we've had numerous presenters, right, for all these topics, and like at least 3 or 4 at every workshop, and various people. I think we've kind of modeled the profile stuff of collaboration. It's been more of a Socratic kind of discussion than just straight presentation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So they've been very successful, and we're going to be doing. In fact, I'm meeting with Charlie and Megan and a couple of other people tomorrow. Brian, a few other people who have been involved in the anxious generation, because we're going to be developing a program for the high school kids, the middle school kids, and grade 6 students, to talk to them about some of the things, that apply to them, things they should understand about the overuse of social media or the improper use of social media and things of that nature. So, we're kind of walking into a tough audience on that one, okay? But I think it's something we really should be doing. So
for sure. Thank you. And I am looking forward to next year also giving some, or planning some new workshops on artificial intelligence that Ms. O'Donnell will speak to today.
Thanks, Megan, and thanks for having us here tonight. So artificial intelligence is the latest technology to make its way into our classrooms. So while new technology in our schools is nothing new, the speed at which artificial intelligence has made its way into our classroom is unlike anything we've seen before, really. So to put it in perspective, you know, it took 25, 30 years for the overhead projector to make it from the bowling alley into our classrooms. Artificial AI has happened literally overnight. But this is not the first time we have faced a technical change in our classrooms. When I started here 34 years ago, I taught in the first computer lab in Rutherford Public Schools. Nellie Fader, you might remember Nellie, looked at me and she said, "They're taking my typewriters away, Barbara. I'm out of here." And we actually had meetings, Jack was in some of them, where we discussed how are we going to disable spell check on the computers, because if the kids use the word processor and they have spell check, we're really not being able to evaluate them on their spelling skills. And then a few years later, when we got the internet, we put bans on it, kind of. We said with research papers, only one source from the World Wide Web can be on your research paper and no more. So we've been here before, okay? So just as we adapted then, we have to adapt now. And we have to provide guidance for people to keep up with this AI evolution. So the knee-jerk reaction in some districts has been to ban AI, or to adapt AI checkers so we can catch students, quote unquote, cheating with it. But in our district, the focus has been, since really last year, is to get our teachers up to speed and teach our teachers and students how to use AI effectively and responsibly. And as always, there's that core group of teachers that step forward and they're willing to try anything out, and they have. And we've added an AI tools sections to our tech website where other teachers can take a look and explore the AI tools that we've kind of looked at and recommend. And we've also provided professional development at faculty meetings for teachers to use AI. As we integrated it into our schools, though, it became apparent that both our students and teachers are going to need more formal guidelines to use this. And that's why we formed the AI committee. And it's a group of teachers from all of our schools, all different grade levels, lots of the media specialists, and we're exploring the role of AI in education and developed some informed recommendations. So the committee has a couple of goals. Our first goal is to explore AI resources to engage students and support personalized learning, to continue to identify some AI tools that will help teachers with their productivity. And along those lines, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of Atlas has an AI tool for the essential questions that they can just use AI, take a look at what AI produces, and then tweak them and make them their own, and establish guidelines and safeguards to promote responsible AI use. We also recognize that the use of AI looks very different at different grade levels. The bottom line is using AI with students requires a thoughtful, age-appropriate approach that considers students' developmental stages. Can it be used at K-3? Absolutely, but it's going to look very, very different than what we do with our high school students. Right now, we do have a draft framework of our guidelines in place, and Jack has seen those. And in 2 weeks, on March 11th and 12th, members of the committee and others will attend the NJECC conference at Montclair State University. And this year, the entire conference is dedicated to AI. And their goal this year is charting a course for teaching and learning in an AI integrated world. And what we've done is we've got a Google Sheet, and we're kind of divide and conquer among the committee members, and we're all signing up for different sessions. Then we'll come back, we're going to regroup, put the final recommendations, and we'll share those with Jack when they're done. We're also keeping a very close eye. There's 2 bills in the New Jersey Assembly and the Senate that would require the teaching of artificial intelligence in our schools, and usually with those bills comes along a model curricula, so we're just keeping an eye on what's happening with those. But by taking this proactive approach to train our teachers and prepare our students, we really want to make them informed, ethical, and responsible AI users, and being ready for whatever the future holds. And we know that this is going to be a work in progress, which it has been.
And to echo, I did read the draft, and I think the draft is outstanding. I know there could be things that the committee will, and Barbara will, based on the workshop they're going to and other things, add it and tweak it. She and the committee has done a remarkable job of reaching out to districts that have developed similar guidelines and look at some of the things that they've done and make a decision of what may or may not work for us. And then they went to ChatGPT and said, write up a draft. No, I'm kidding. But I learned a long time ago from a mentor of mine, that moving slowly but pragmatically and forward is the best way to go. If you rush to judgment, you wind up doing a lot of rewrites. And so we're taking a good look at this. And I think when the final draft comes, the faculty, the staff, and I think the board will be happy with the results. So that's it, right? Dr. Lahadi, I'll turn it back to you if there's any. I want to thank the 4 of you for all the work you've done, but also coming out tonight, giving up your time, and instead of just taking a written report of mine and giving it some personality and life and some insight. So thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say a couple of quick words of gratitude and thank you, only because this is also my love language, as it is yours. I'm sure all this hard work that you're doing. I hope that a lot of families in the district watch tonight's video and really can hear about the types of things that are going on and the types of things that you're doing. Just a couple of examples just from my experience in the field that really stand out. It is not uncommon for school districts to have a profile of a graduate, but to integrate it into every aspect of website, curriculum, in all of the ways that you talked about, it's super deep and super meaningful. When you have new curriculum to share, here's what Envision Math is like, or here's what we're evaluating. Those things are really important and helpful to families, especially because when the kids are young, they want to help them if they know what they're doing, which previous math program may not have been quite as easy as maybe this one is to actually help their kids. But to do workshops on things like executive functioning and the anxious generation and kind of really looking at the whole child is really phenomenal. I was not aware of all the things going on with AI and the AI committee, and I really applaud you for leaning in. My board, I just had a conversation earlier today, and we were talking about some work we're doing, but I didn't use the word processor. I didn't go back that far in time. I went to when I started at my when I started at my school in 2012. It was really the infusion of social media, and that was kind of a big thing. And so my version of We've Been Here was with social media, but. Absolutely. Also, Mr. Ursulisi, when you talked about Atlas as a living, fluid document, that's like music to my ears, because oftentimes with curriculum mapping programs, teachers sort of view them as where to put curriculum so that the next teacher knows what to do and what to pick up, as opposed to like, how do you use it as a living document? So I think all of these things that you mentioned are phenomenal, and I just wanted to take a moment to express like how appreciative we are and like how much great work is really happening. So thank you for that. Questions or comments from board members? Mr. Ely?
Yes, I would just like to comment and say thank you for the collaboration with the parents. That seems to be very successful. it's good for, I guess, all of us to know that the parents are actively involved. I have a question about the Atlas platform. I think it was Mr. Ursulisi. You mentioned strengths and weaknesses are reported, so you can actually see from test results. How is that generated from the?
Sure. So usually in August, we get the reports from the state on how we did on the NJSLA or how we did on the NJGPA. And it gives us anywhere between the 12 and 15 most assessed standards in ELA or in math. And then it puts us on a continuum with the state average, with other schools that we used to be called a district factor group. It's no longer called that, but other schools that are in our target area, and then where we fall within schools that are in our own district. So we can see, were we above the state average? Were we below the state average? We're consistently above the state average, but we're not always consistently above where that same group of students were the year prior. So if there was a standard, for example, that said being able to identify the main idea, and our third graders didn't do so well in that. What I will now be able to do in Atlas is say, okay, find me that standard in the third grade curriculum and show me how we are teaching that standard. What resources are we using? What activities are the teachers using? And what assessments are we using? And then it'll help me communicate with the teachers, and the teachers can do this themselves too, look and say, oh, you know what, I really need to bolster what I'm doing in that standard because we weren't hitting the level we think we should be.
It's wonderful.
It's pretty wild. I mean, it's really, it's amazing.
And bolster could mean we're not doing it enough. It could also mean we're not using the right resources.
Right.
It could also mean we're doing it at the wrong time of year. We're not building on it. We're doing it once. We're not going back and revisiting it. All that's going to be a lot simpler and easier to find than what we currently are doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Yeah, we do, yeah.
So just like the students, we're going to say that, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but we really appreciate you. If you have homework you need to attend to, it's all good.
Dr. Alati asked me if I was okay with that. I said, absolutely not. They should stay here. Okay.
You could have waited till he was done with the sentence.
Ms.
before you
Coy
got
said
up.
how exciting the meetings were. I wanted her to stay and actually see how exciting they were.
You fall asleep, right?
Okay, you want
Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Yes, I'm next, right?
Yeah, so we will move on now to the report of the superintendent.
A very quick report tonight. I'm simply going to mention the embedded report on violence, vandalism, substance, HIB. I have to give this twice a year. And I will tell you that going along with the theme of things being really good this year, those numbers are down. We've only had, for example, one alleged HIB that was unfounded so far the entire year. From previous years, those numbers were never extraordinarily high, but a lot higher than that. We have had fewer incidents of, violence is a tough word. That just means two kids are shoving each other. We've had none at the high school, which, again, is very unique. There's usually at least one or two that happen. We've had very few throughout the district. And the ones that have happened have been, like I said, young kids just getting a little carried away, maybe playing basketball at recess or something like that. The one thing that is up a little bit is the substance with 8 cases this year at the high school. That's a higher number than we've had in previous years. I attribute that to the change in laws involving marijuana, where kids would, get access to it, and they're using the vape, and they get caught. So the numbers are higher because it's something that's a little more prevalent right now in society. And we do invoke our policy with that, which both is a punitive consequence, but also a counseling consequence when a student is found to be under the influence of any substance. Okay? The HIB trainings, again, are pretty consistent in terms of, the trainings for the faculty and staff programs are geared towards kids. That goes into that self analysis evaluation that we do annually. And something they added this year, because there's, about restraint and seclusion, our teachers in our self-contained special ed classes, as well as some of the administrators, have to be trained in properly restraining a student if need be. And they are trained, but as you see, we've had no need to have any reported restraint or then seclusion in any of those classes. So that's the report. I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments. I'll be happy to answer.
I mean, I think the numbers are really pretty extraordinary. I mean, it's less than 2% of all, like, what do we have, 2,700 students in the district? And I mean, the high school numbers, I mean, that's sometimes where you see the higher numbers. I mean, that's pretty incredible.
It's been remarkable. Yeah.
Is there anything that you attribute the reduction in HIBs to? Is there any correlation or to?
I can't put my finger on anything. I mean, we've been doing a lot of the same programs. I mean, Pierpont and Union have had that PBSIS for a couple of years. We do the same kinds of, preventative and instructional. I really wish I could pinpoint it because then we'd say, let's keep doing it, right? I just think it's been that kind of year. I think we've had a lot of, and this might be a simplistic thing, but we've been talking about the increase in academic success, the increase in artistic success, in athletic success. When people buy in and they're doing well, you have less problems, fewer problems.
Sure.
When people are a little bored or they're not succeeding or they get frustrated, that's when you have it. So there's no easy answer, but I am pleased that there's such a decline. And I always do mention those other incidents leading to a removal, being a suspension or something, or in-school suspension. Those are things like excessive tardies or cutting a class or things that don't make the heavy hitter report, but there are things of that nature. But even those numbers are not extraordinarily high, compared to other years. They're rather low. And the only other thing I will say, I'm going to give some of my time to Mr. Whitford to give an update on the budget. We will be doing a full budget presentation at the next meeting and then again at the hearing. I'll let him take that. But I am I'm very proud of and very pleased with the work that's been going on for the last couple of years. A deep dive and very honest look at what we're doing and what we could do better. And I think you could see how they're representing the teachers that are on the various committees, the pride that each of them are taking in what they're putting forward. The ownership of that is really remarkable. So I'm very pleased. I'm glad you had a chance to hear that, not just from me, but from others as well. Matt? I'm like the gentleman from this side is yielding and making time to the Honorable Mr. Whitford.
So as Mr. Hurley mentioned, I want to give an update to the 25-26 budget process. You'll see formal presentations at our March 10th meeting and then our late April meeting. I think it's the 27th. As this year, as every other year, the board's approved a budget calendar, and we've stuck to that calendar almost to a T since November. So late November, early December, Mr. Hurley and I meet with all of our administrators. That goes to supervisors, building principals, to hear their needs, their wants, their concerns they have for the next budget year, the next school year. In addition, we meet with, obviously, our board committees, Buildings and Grounds, Curriculum, Mr. Hurley we meet with. Our Finance Committee meets a number of times in the past 3 months, and we'll meet again next week before our preliminary budget presentation on the 10th. Just so it all aligns with the district goals, board goals, a number of the aspects that you heard of tonight for the portrait of the graduate, how our curriculum is being designed, the different achievements that are desired from the board and from our administration, that the business administrators selfishly say it's our budget, but it is very much not our budget. It's the board's budget, it's the district's budget. We're just tweaking numbers here and there to make sure that the programs and initiatives that we have or are focused on are included in that budget, and that's driving it. The other large, or more significant, to be honest, as a financial standpoint, drivers for the budget are salaries and benefits for our staff. So no less than 80% of the entire budget is made up of salaries and benefits for all district staff. The other 20% includes extracurriculars, programs, special education services, technology, buildings and grounds, all of which have seen increasing costs over the past year and obviously over the past few years. So during the rollout of the 25-26 budget software that the state sets up for business administrators and superintendents to submit our budget, districts were notified that a state allowable adjustments to the tax levy cap were granted for health benefits and for enrollment. Using these state allowable adjustments and our normal 2% cap would result in a 4.46 school tax levy increase. The state's allowable adjustments are only 90 cents on the dollar to what actual increase in costs are. So, if my health benefits bill actually goes up $100, that state allowable increase is really only $90 to that 100. So it is a significant help, and in a financially standpoint, a need. It's only goes so far. So there's still a number of aspects of the budget that our normal 2% cap does have to take on. So using these adjustments allow the district to maintain programs and staff while still taking on a number of these increased costs. In addition to the local tax levy, which is a significant portion of our revenue, historically, Rutherford's always gotten about 7% of our revenue from state aid. Due to possible fluctuations, because state aid is never guaranteed, either positive or negative, we usually focus on using that state aid numbers or additional funding from state aid for one-time expenses. Right? You never want to, buy a new car or lease a new car with your bonus check, because that bonus check might not happen the next year. So any kind of one-time revenue sources, we usually try to use for one-time expenses to make sure that our budget's sustainable over time. Those state aid figures will be released to school districts this Thursday after Governor Murphy gives his budget address tomorrow. So the Finance Committee will meet again on a week from today, March 3rd, and this board will get a full preliminary budget presentation on March 10th. That budget will get sent to our county office. County office basically reviews it for compliance with code and then sends it back to the district if there's no other issues. And then a formal adoption of the budget will be happening on our late April meeting. I think again it's the 27th. That full adoption of the budget will be for the 25-26 year. I do want to thank a lot of the district administrators and the building principals, our board committees themselves. Since I've gotten here, I've definitely added a few things, maybe updated a few processes that I've brought from experiences from other roles. But the things that Rutherford has in place before I got here were very strong, very positive, very streamlined. So I think anything that I added just helped that process, and the administrators really took on any updates that I had with grace, were very welcoming to them, and I feel like it became a much smoother process this year. So I want to thank them for their cooperation and their communication with me throughout this whole process. Thanks.
I want to thank Mr. Whitford. He's done a great job. This is a tough task, really tougher this year. I've heard today from 5 different superintendents who have said to me, "Are you running into these problems that we're running into trying to get things, get our budget to balance, to hit the cap?" Costs, as we all know, in our day-to-day life and in whether it's our personal life or our business life, are escalating, and the cap. We would be facing some really, really serious consequences if we didn't get this allowable increase that Mr. Whitford referred to. You also may be hearing, there was an article in the NorthJersey.com today, the Bergen Record, about the state of aid being cut no greater than 3% if you were to get a cut. Last year there were some districts who got double-figure surprises, cuts, and so now they at least said, hey, for the purpose of budgeting, if you're going to take a hit, it's not going to be more than 3% of your state aid. That, as Mr. Whitford and I have discussed, the interpretation of those messages from the state, you know, like any governmental body, right? You begin to say, what are they trying to say? Are they saying everybody's getting cut? Are they saying we're all going to expect a 3% cut? We've heard from, Matt, some reliable sources that say, yep, it's going to be flat or a cut. And then from other reliable sources, no, there's going to be some increases. So the bottom line is, like everybody else, we'll wait to hear what the governor says tomorrow morning. And then come Thursday, right, is when we actually, you know, we can do a guesstimate, but even that guesstimate doesn't matter. If state aid, he'll give the holistic number tomorrow, the whole number. That number doesn't really apply to us because some districts make out and some don't. So we'll wait until Thursday. But knowing that if we did get a cut, it wouldn't be more than 3%, does not make things good for us, but it also isn't catastrophic. We could, you know, we'll work through that. So once we hear, you know, we'll probably let everybody know what the state aid figures are, so at least you're aware. And then we meet with finance on Monday night, and then the budget, you know, you've all been through this before, right? The preliminary budget that goes to the county, barring something that the county puts a red flag up on, or something that we discover in the interim that, whoa, we can't do that, or we should do that. That is the budget that's going to go forward. So, you know, the meeting on the 3rd, the meeting on the 10th are important meetings.
All right, thank you. I appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Rutherford, about building on a strong foundation and how everyone's working internally. It's great. Evidently some board members at the last negotiation meeting said that I compliment Mr. Whitford too often, so I'm not going to go too far in my compliments, but no, I'm just kidding. It really seems like things are moving forward very efficiently, and you know, really appreciate all your work. Any questions or comments? So we're going to go on then to the report of the president. I really don't have much else to report beyond all the things that were reported tonight. I'm really proud of all of our students with all these great accomplishments. I really personally, professionally blown away by the academic committee's presentation. I thought it was really very helpful to kind of see how they're thinking about things really deeply. And I think it's all, you know, going to pay off in getting teachers buy-in. I don't undervalue that statement. The fact that teachers are working on this and that they're part of these committees that are recommending these changes is super important. So yeah, that's keep my report brief tonight. Any questions or comments?
Maybe
really?
let's extend thanks to Dr. Valechko and the Lincoln School's students for these letters that Mr. Whitford passed out. Very nice.
The letters, yes. They're wonderful.
Sorry, I just saw them.
I actually have one from my granddaughter. Thank you.
So she's waiting for some ice cream this weekend.
Awesome. All right. So then at 8:03 p.m., we're going to open the meeting to the public, and at 8:03 p.m., we're going to close the meeting to the public, just because there is no one in the public here this evening. We're going to move on now to new business with action to be taken. So we will start with personnel. Mrs. Cole.
Hi, good evening. Personnel did meet this month on February 18th via Zoom. And tonight we have 24 motions to be put forward at the recommendation of the superintendent. Number one is to accept the retirement of Michael Stracco, English teacher at the high school, with regret. Number two, to accept the retirement of Paul Bazina, bus driver for the Rutherford School District, with regret. Numbers 3, 4, 5, and 6 are resignations. Number 7 is the approval of an extension as a leave replacement. Number 8, to approve a long-term substitute teacher. Number 9, to approve an adjustment in the hours for a part-time bus assistant. Number 10 is to approve a lunch monitor. This is a replacement position. Number 11, to accept the resignation of a lunch monitor. Number 12, to approve a lunch monitor. This is also a replacement position. Number 13, to approve a transfer. Number 14 is to approve the following new job descriptions, which are Supervisor of Educational Technology and Student Information, IT Manager and Network Systems Administrator, and Data Coordinator Administrative Assistant for Information Technology. Number 15, to approve the coordinator of the Summer Enrichment Academy. Number 16, to approve the following teachers to revise and edit curriculum for the Summer Enrichment Academy as listed. Number 17, to rescind and approve the following high school co-curricular assignments and stipends as listed. Number 18, to approve the following coaching assignments as listed. Number 19, to approve a disability leave with pay. Number 20, to approve an adjustment in disability leave with pay. Number 21, to approve the following teachers for supplementary after-school Title I programs as listed. 22, to approve the following substitute teachers as listed. 23, to approve the following substitute teacher assistants as listed. And number 24, to approve the following travel reimbursements as listed.
All right, questions or comments?
Yeah. 10 and 11 is what.
We all have the same question.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Well, again, I'm talking about personnel, so I have to, someone, we have part-time employees who can't exceed a certain number of hours because then they become full-time employees. So someone in a position saw another opening which they thought they would like to do, it would still keep them in a part-time status. They tried the other one for a day or two, didn't like it, didn't fit right. So then they said, we really don't want to do this. So that's where it gets a little confusing. Okay? Yeah, I as I was looking, it made sense to me, but as I heard it being read tonight, I'm like, I'm going to get a question about this. I do want to mention Mr. Stracco, 32 years in education, 23 years here. Did a lot of work early on in his career with our school plays. Been a class advisor. Has also did a great job of building the public speaking class into what used to be a small elective into really almost a full-time program. And Mr. Messina has been a bus driver with us for, I think, about 12 or 13 years. So 2 more retirements that will be at the end of the year.
I think my son will be disappointed to hear Mr. Stracco's retiring. I also just wanted to acknowledge and just appreciate the work you did on number 14, just how you're thinking about, since Mrs. O'Donnell is retiring, just how you thought about holistically making sure the district has what it needs from an IT and educational technology standpoint, and going over that in a couple of committees, personnel, strategic planning, just to be able to share more deeply. So.
Right. Thank you. And just, general statement for the board members who are not part of those committees. Ms. O'Donnell's job started off 25 years ago, actually before her, 35 years ago with another individual. And the job has grown, the responsibility has grown, where it's really not a one-person job anymore. So rearranging some current positions, reshaping them a little bit, allows us to replace the supervisor, spread out some of the work, and still get the job done efficiently.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mrs. Cole, do you want to move those?
I would like to move motions 1 through 24 under personnel.
All right, we have a second. Mr. Conti, any last questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Whitford, please take roll.
Mr. Bogosian?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Dr. Eladi?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
All right, thank you. We'll move to curriculum and instruction. Ms. Jones.
Thank you. Tonight, there are 4 motions that are put forth by the recommendation of our superintendent. 1, out-of-district placements. 2, field trips, now totally 142. 3, Summer Enrichment Academy, which is changed from Lincoln School, be at Washington School this year, and home instruction for 9 students. That's it.
All right. Any questions or comments from board members?
I do want to say, as I informed the board, we're raising tuition for the first time in 6 years at the Summer Enrichment Academy by $50. It's a totally self-funded program, right? There's no budget allotment for it. So the tuition pays for the whole program. And as salaries have increased and cost of everything has increased, after 6 years, we felt we had to raise the tuition. And we still we did our homework and we're still a lot lower than most programs, similar programs.
All right. Ms. Jones, you want to move those?
I move resolutions 1 through 4.
All right, and we have a second. Mr. Healy, any last questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Whitford, please take roll.
Mr. Bogosian?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Dr. Alati?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, we are going to move on now to finance. Mr. Bogosian.
Good evening. We had a Finance Committee meeting on February 10th, focused primarily on the budget. Tonight on the agenda, we have 6 motions to consider. Number 1 is the routine approval of bills. Number 2 is the December Treasurer's Report. Number 3 are budget line transfers for December. Number 4 is to ratify amendments to our workers' compensation pool. Number 5 is to acknowledge exceeding our bid threshold through the use of purchasing cooperative. And number 6 is to approve reimbursement for parental transportation expenses.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments? Mr. Bogosian.
So on the workers' comp pool thing, each one of those things are new insertions into the agreement?
Amendments to the current
okay.
bylaws, yep.
Other questions? All right, hearing none. Mr. Bogosian, you want to move this?
I'd like to move motions 1 through 6 under finance.
All right, we have a second. Mrs. Cole, any last questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Whitford, please take roll.
Mr. Bogosian?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Dr. Alati?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
All right, thank you. We'll move on now to policy. Mr. Healy.
Yes, we did not have a policy committee meeting since our last board meeting. We have one motion with 7 policy under regulations as a second reading for this evening. And I'd like to move the one motion as listed.
Okay. Do we have a second to move that? Mr. Bogosian, any questions or comments? This is the second reading, seeing
It's
none.
nice to see the spectator code of conduct.
Is that?
The spectator
Nice to
code
see
of
this.
conduct. It's nice to see that it's
Yeah.
it's a policy.
Well, you know, it's kind of what we always did, but
Yeah.
now there's policy behind it. You know, policy,
Yeah.
means that it gives you a little more clout when you have to deal with an issue.
Oh yeah.
And credit to the NJSIA because they really came forward and said, we want to see every district have a policy.
All right, any last questions or comments? We had it moved and seconded, so Mr. Whitford, please take roll.
Mr. Bogosian?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Dr. Alati?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
All right, thank you. Next is Building and Grounds. Mr. Sprayberry is not here, but there is nothing to report on, so we can skip over that and move on to old business. Is there any old business, Ms. Jones?
I did get the chance to see Lion King Jr. at Union School. That was the 7th and 8th grade production. It was absolutely wonderful. And Maddie Racine was part of the stage crew, and Cooper Conte, and also you were mentioning here that you helped also. Wonderful with the lights. They do such a great job. You don't think that you're looking at kids performing. It's so good. And
Awesome.
a real credit to the teachers that assisted and did it. Jackie Mann, Brianne Bilbao, Alea Jordan. It was just wonderful. Now, the next one's coming up is going to be in the high school.
Mary Poppins. Yeah.
Mary Poppins.
It's going to be Tuesday the 11th. Tuesday the 11th is the senior citizen dress rehearsal at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then Friday night, I think 7 o'clock. I'll get that in the next, because we have a meeting ahead of that. And Saturday, there's a matinee at 2 or 2:30, and then
Oh, so
performance in the
there
evening.
is an afternoon performance.
2 performances on Saturday,
Yeah.
and then
That's
the
great.
afternoon on the Tuesday. Okay?
Mr. Whitford, you might think about bringing your girls to that one. Matinee performance.
There you go.
They would love it. The
They
kid,
would,
I mean,
yeah.
Anyway, and you'll see our kids in action too.
But, you know, Ms. Jones, to your point, the theater group, again, there's a lot of good things happening in the district. So what was always a very independent, you know, Pierpont, Union, the high school did their, now they all work together, and this year all the plays are going to be Disney themed. You know, a lot of the same folks are working on all 3 plays. So really the concept of building not only good plays, but a program, right, where the kids will know as they move along, you know, because the play director at Union isn't a stranger to them when they move up there, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I'd like to add to that one of the things that was really nice about the play was that there was an REF grant that was handed out for some new lighting equipment there. And I'm a little biased, obviously, but it was awesome.
Oh, nice.
So I thought it was just nice for the REF to see it being used and everything. So thanks to the REF.
Well, the addition of the speakers in the high school last year, I guess it was, maybe you know more.
Yeah, I think it was last year.
What a difference that made. You can really understand the students speaking, and that's just so important.
Yeah.
I have been a fan of the plays since my kids were in school, which goes back to the 80s and early 90s, and went to they weren't in it, but I just liked to watch the kids. I knew a lot of the kids in it. And I'm always moved by it. The performance is just so wonderful.
My first 4 years of principal, I did like Alfred Hitchcock. I had a walk-on in every play. I took a role, and always had to be a role that I would have to be holding something.
Oh, isn't that
So
great?
I didn't have to worry about going to rehearsal and memorize lines. So, you know, like for example, in Bye Bye Birdie, I performed the wedding, you know, things like that. So I had to. So, but then after I didn't get any Tony nominations, I stopped doing it.
But you did take part at the Christmas celebration, didn't you?
What's that?
Didn't you take part at the Christmas celebration?
Christmas, I was Santa Claus, and I did other things later on, and I performed 3 times in Popsart. Twice as Elvis, once as Tony Orlando.
Ah,
Tony Orlando.
Renaissance man.
There you go.
Other old business. I'll just share one quick thing. Now, I think it's going on last weekend, maybe the weekend before. I went to see my son run at Fordham, and he took 2nd place in the 60-meter hurdle, which was pretty incredible. It was like a 6 college meet, and it was the first time I got to see him in person, and the assistant coach was there afterward, and he was talking about how kind of disciplined James was, and, you know, work ethic, and kind of really enjoys being a multi-event person, and was giving kudos and compliments to his high school track coaches, and just saying, like, that doesn't come from nowhere. Not that I was expecting a thank you for being a good parent, but no, I'm just kidding. But it was really it was a nice moment, so I owe the track coaches, you know, also a thank you, and I think they'll appreciate hearing that, you know, all of that work that they put into their athletes in high school,
oh, that's wonderful.
you know,
That's
pays
good.
off.
That's good.
All right, so move on to legislative update. Ms. Jones?
Yeah. One, New Jersey Assembly Bill 5281, just introduced on February 10th, just like last week or so, by Representative Michelle Nakaskulis, I'm not pronouncing that right, Republican, permits Jointure Commission to provide transportation services on school buses it owns or leases to local school districts without public bidding. Now, I'm not sure.
I can't imagine how you're going to award bus routes without bidding. So I don't know if that's going to have much legs under it, right, Mr. Whitford? I mean, how will a jointure commission award bus routes if you don't have public bidding?
My only thought is that it's the jointure employees. It's not a third-party contractor that's going through it. But I'm not sure how many statewide jointures have their own bus fleets and their own bus staff for that.
Right.
It doesn't really affect our area.
No,
No.
All right, sorry.
that's all right.
Look for a better one.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Jones. So at 8:20 p.m., we're going to open the meeting to the public for any comments, and we're going to close the meeting to the public, not having anyone in the audience at this moment. We do have a need for an executive session to talk about one student issue and contract negotiation update. Should be out about 10 or 15 minutes. So we need no action to be taken. A motion to go into executive session, Mr. Bogosian, seconded by Ms. Cole. And all in favor? Aye. All right, we are going into executive session.